Like my new camera? It's an iPad. Just kidding. I'm out here at Route 66, and it's in California, a place called Ludlow, I don't know, but it's here. And I have the day off. I actually have a job to do it tonight at midnight, so I'm just trying to get myself tired for a good nap. So I'm out here at Route 66. I was watching someone else's video of them exploring Route 66 recently, and just want to come see what I could find for myself. A lot of random abandoned places and just some random things in the desert. You know, I was kidding about this, no offense if you use an iPad for a camera. I did just purchase a medium format Mamiya camera. It's an RB67, and I got it a few weeks ago, and I've been trying a lot of rolls of film on it. And through that, I've been noticing, before I want to show it to people, that I noticed that the lens has a lot of fungus on it, or I've come to realize, because the photos are just hazy. And while a friend of mine is like, oh, that's a cool characteristic, you shouldn't change it, I took it to a camera repair place, and they're currently working on it, and I should have it back in a week. So I'll be excited to show you that. So, and I'll come back out here with that. But for now, I've just got my Canon, I have my Canon 6D. So let's see what we can find. So the first thing I want to photograph is just this house or shack, I don't know what it is. But I like how there's graffiti on it with the eyes, and there's a dryer or oven or something with a third eye, which I don't know what that represents, but it's kind of cool. It's with the symmetry. And I've got my 90mm tilt shift and a circular polarizer and so I'm just actually going to do a shallow depth of field. I'm not going to get everything in focus. And the reason I'm using my tilt shift, I want to make sort of a panoramic stitch, and I don't know if I'll use it as a panoramic in the long run, but I'll have the option later. So check this out. So something I learned from another photographer is when doing a panoramic, always just start off with a frame in front with your hand in front to show you that's the start of the panoramic, and you can stitch it from there forward, knowing that that's one set. So first image, we're just on a 2-second timer. And with the tilt shift, it's easier to keep the perspective the same. I don't have to worry about the level of my camera as I rotate, because the lens is already leveled and it's just moving across the plane. And if you do decide to come out here, keep in mind right now it's early August or mid-August almost, and it's 105 degrees. It's a little hot, and probably not the best time to come, but it's the time I had to bring some water. This doesn't make me smart, but it helps. I don't feel smarter. This next shot's from the other side of the shack. I don't know if it's the Love Shack or the shack like the book, but it's a shack, and I think this side might be the porch. But one thing I noticed is looking through the inside to the other side, there's a frame within a frame, and I like creating the negative space, but the dark negative space. And through the other side you see the desert and mountains and a little bit more rubble. Here I'm using a long depth of field where I want to get more in focus and have it all in focus. And I might do a focus stack where I have the foreground in focus in one shot and then the far background in focus. And in Photoshop, there's an easy action to merge it all together. But I'm trying my best. I've got it at f10. I could go more, make it a smaller aperture, but one thing I notice on, at least with Canon lenses, I'm not sure with other companies, is that although it might be in focus, after a certain f-stop, you start to lose detail. And there's a fancy word for that, and I'll flash it here because I'll look it up later. But anyway, you lose detail, or lose definition, even though it's in focus. And for the longest time, I just used to do f18, f22, just because I thought, oh, it would get everything in focus. And it did, but I'd always get frustrated because I noticed this lack of detail. And when I saw in Canon, when they advertise their lenses, they have something called an MTF chart, and I always just thought that was mumbo jumbo, but it's actually telling you something, that the lens is sharpest at a certain f-stop. And more often than not, it's usually f8, f4 when it starts to get sharp, and then f8 in that range is typically the sharpest. But when you also need that depth of field, extra depth of field, it's difficult to just stay at f8 or f4. So there's compromises. So I put it to f10 and focus stack several shots. So we have Photoshop, why not? So I'm at f10, and first I'll focus on the front door frame. I'll do a shot with the timer. And it actually came out pretty good in the background, but just to make sure, I'll do a second shot with the background in focus. And one more for the farthest horizon as a FedEx truck goes by. And boom. Something I find interesting in these old places is, okay, they're abandoned, and people like me just pull up, walk in, take some pictures and leave, thinking it looks cool this way. And I kind of think this was built, obviously, to be new, and I don't know what function this place has, or had, but, you know, care went into it, and design and everything. You know, I don't know how quickly they put it together, how good of a job they did or whatever, all that kind of thing, but, you know, this was intentionally made to look new and to do whatever it needed to be. I just find it interesting that, you know, as art, we just show up and photograph it, thinking it's cool as being dilapidated. But this was somebody's, this belonged to somebody. Well, I'm starting to melt out here, and so I'm going to get in the air conditioning of the car and keep going, see what we can find. I'm at the Amboy Natural Crater. It's a volcano from a long time ago. I feel kind of stupid. I've seen these black rocks before around the desert. I just assumed they were from a recent fire, but actually they're from an old volcano. And it's about a mile hike to the center of the crater, and I'd like to do it, and I would do it, but it's about 110 degrees out here, a little hot. So I'll leave it for a cooler month. Especially with my medium format camera, I'd like to come back with it. I'm using a 50mm lens, just doing a simple frame. There's actually a spot I liked that was along the road, the highway. I'm going to go back to you in a little bit, check it out, but it requires a little climbing. But here we go. Well, I think I'm going to call it for today. I'm finding a lot of cool places that I love to check out and give them more time, but it's just way too hot. And so I'm just using this trip as sort of a scouting trip. So I will be back, Lord willing. And so I hope you've enjoyed this time. If you got any comments or questions, leave them down below. I'll see you next time.